Hello everyone, good evening and welcome to the English paper analysis session. So I know we promised poems to you, but then CBSE released the sample question paper. So I hope you've all had time to go through it. I'm sure you did. And so today we are going to discuss it, and any doubts you have, we can get them out of the way. So before we get started, tell me how you're doing. I hope you're all doing well, and let me know if you can see me and if you can hear me. Alright, as usual I see a lot of thumbs ups from Papia. Hi Aditi, Yash, Suraj, Midun. Great, okay, so we have a lot to cover, so let's get started. And here we go. So, here is the general information that you need to be aware of. So the total time you have is 2 hours, total marks is 40, and unlike term 1, this is going to be subjective, which by the way is nothing to be scared about. I feel like it will make a lot of things a lot easier, so no worries. And then you have an internal assessment for 10 marks, so your total marks become 50. Okay, let's see how the paper is divided. So as you can see, 10 questions for RC. You have to attempt 1 for writing, so this will be a choice between your letter and your analytical paragraph. Then you have 5 questions for grammar and 8 for literature, and literature has subjective answers. I mean, everything does, but so get rid of that MCQ mindset and let's dive into this subjective answer mindset. So let's quickly get started because we have a lot to cover. So let's start with the reading comprehension. So I hope you've all had the chance to go through the RC passage. So just give me 1 second. So yeah, the comments are now visible to me. So yeah, let me know. Now I can see what you're saying. So let me know quickly that have you had the chance to go through this passage or no? Okay. So anyway, whether or not you've gone through the passage, you can always do it later. So right now we'll just have a very quick idea of what the passage is about. So you can see it says, just 1 second. This should work. Okay, so as you can see, it's talking about technology and it's talking about the crafts industry. So the entire passage is basically talking about how the crafts industry has been impacted by technology. Okay, and so because of the advent of technology and the use of machinery and general mechanization of many processes that are involved in the crafts industry, the crafts industry seems to be suffering. Now with reading comprehension, first of all, as you can all see, this is a discursive passage. So we have 2 kinds of passages, discursive and factual. And if any of you are confused about this, I would urge you to watch the RC video that we did, RC session for the term 1 exam. So everything else remains the same. How you're going to approach the passage, what you're going to find in the passage, and you know, all the tips and tricks, they remain the same. Everything is the same. So nothing is going to change in terms of your approach. The only thing that's going to change is that you have to now write answers instead of picking the right answer, okay? So all of you, the link is in the description. Go watch the RC session if you have time and if you have any confusions. But quickly, just to go over, the discursive passage is the author's thoughts and opinions, right? So that's how we're going to read it. We're going to read it as the author's thoughts and opinions. So we're trying to understand what the author is trying to tell us. Okay, so according to the author of this passage, technology has impacted the crafts industry and the artisans who work in the crafts industry. So right now what you have on screen talks about the side effects of technology. So technology is usually seen as a good thing, a good development, but it has had bad side effects on the handicraft or the crafts industry. Okay, so now the good thing about the handicraft industry or the crafts industry is that it involves a lot of skill, it involves a lot of hard work. So you can't just go learn how to press a few buttons and figure out how to make something. So you know, these handicraft products that are different, you know, wherever you are from, you might have something that is unique to your place, which is, you know, called a handicraft. So every state, every city, you know, they have some products that they've been making for generations, and these require a certain kind of skill, they require a certain kind of technique that these artists have learned from, usually from generations. Okay, so now with machines coming about, you no longer require that skill, you can just mechanize all the processes. Okay, so that is what the author is telling us. So that appeal of handicraft items goes away when it becomes so dependent on machines, right? So this is what this on your screen right now is talking about. And then moving on, we have more. So here it's delving deeper into mechanization. So you know, all the processes of cutting, polishing, edging, designing, all of this was usually done by hand. And it took a lot of time and it took a lot of effort. Now it's become very easy to do it using machines, okay? So in handicrafts, ideally speaking, machines should not be involved. That's where the word handy also comes in there, because it needs to be done with your hands. So, but now, because of mass production, because of seeing how easy it is to mass produce these items and how cost and time effective these are, you can easily get it done with machines. So, and this, the author is saying, is an ill effect. It's a side effect, it's a bad thing. Okay. So here, Papiya, I just had a question from you that there were numbers. So those are just lines given to you. So you will have questions, and we will see a certain question like that will refer to specific lines in the passage. So to make it easier for you, so you don't have to read, okay, this is the first line, this is the second line. It just gives you the number of the line. So there will be a question where it says 5 to 15 line numbers. So you can easily refer to those lines because the number is given to you in the question paper. Okay, that's all that is. Alright, so here basically what the author is saying, that quantity over quality has become the new norm. So we want more, we don't want quality goods, we just want a lot of goods, okay? And then here at the end, this is just the author saying that according to the author, the government and, you know, private industries need to focus a little bit more on making sure that artisans can retain their art and not everything gets so dependent on machines, okay? And here we can also see that from 65 lakh artisans it's gone down to 25 lakhs because this craft is no longer so skill dependent, so anybody can do it, anybody can buy a machine and do it, right? So here, this is the essence of the passage for anyone who hadn't read it and anyone who had confusions. Now let's see what kind of questions we can get. So here the first question is, what does the writer mean by calling handicrafts a valued tradition? Okay, so this was in the very first line of the passage, valued tradition. So as you can see here in the question, it's a two-part question. So you will have to explain both why is it valued, and then you will have to explain why it's a tradition. So handicrafts is being called a valued tradition. Okay, so and this you had seen in your marking scheme, perhaps all of you had a chance to go through it. So here valued means showcase talents that are associated with artisans, lifestyle and history. So we just talked about all of this. We said that why handicrafts is, you know, people who visit certain countries or certain places would like to buy handicrafts because they're unique. So they show a cultural identity of that place. They show a rich heritage of that place. And they require skill. So the main thing that's adding value to handicraft items is skill. Is that you and I cannot just get up and go make something that is a valued handicraft of a particular area. Okay, we need to sit, we need to learn, and perhaps it takes years to learn a certain skill. Okay, certain kind of stitching, certain kind of weaving, certain kind of painting. So all of this has been passed on from generation to generation a lot of time. So you can add 2 points here, you can add skill, you can add expertise. So a lot of skill and a lot of expertise goes into making these products, which is why they are of value. And another thing which you will address in the tradition part is that they represent an artistic culture. So like I just spoke about, you guys can give me examples of wherever you're from might have a very unique handicraft item that is famous. So when guests visit, you can tell them, oh, you know, this is famous in our area, maybe you should buy this. Okay, so a lot of places have very famous handicraft items. So they represent a tradition. Okay, they represent a rich history, a rich culture that item is coming from. Okay, so that's the tradition point. So you need to explain both these points for such a question. Why are handicrafts a value tradition? Because they have skill, expertise, and Kamal is saying bamboo basket is also a handicraft. Yes, and in the northeast region, a lot of bamboo work is done. So a lot of things are made with bamboo and with cane, and all of these are very unique to that region. So we call these handicraft items. Very good. So there are many examples like that. Okay, so Sukhjot, you will get all of these from the passage. And remember, a very good thing about discursive passage, your answers being subjective, is that you just have to explain your comprehension skills. So over here, nobody is assessing whether your spellings are correct, whether your grammar is correct. All they are assessing is whether or not you have comprehended, that is understood the passage. So as long as you show understanding in your answer, you don't have to worry about spellings and grammar, but bear in mind that is only for RC. That does not apply to writing, that does not apply to literature. So here you have some leeway, you just have to explain your understanding and you don't have to get into spelling and grammar. Okay, so this is clear. So handicraft is a value tradition, we've explained why it's valued and we've explained why it's a tradition. Okay, now here, next question. Rewrite the following sentence by replacing the underlined phrase with a word that means the same from lines 5 to 15. So here what Papiya was asking, why 5 to 15 the lines were given. So this is why they were given. So you don't waste time counting the lines, you can easily refer to them. Okay, so here is the question. Here is the passage that in which we have to replace this particular phrase. If it continues, the workation, which is work plus vacation trend, will be a powerful boost to domestic tourism operators failing to make progress in the economic slump caused due to the pandemic. Okay, so here we have to replace failing to make progress. Now let's go back to the passage. And here what I'm showing you on screen is not lines 5 to 15. The line 5 starts somewhere from, I think this is line 5 in your question paper, and it goes on and on. But there's a reason why I have given you this part of the passage. Here, the word, our answer, I will tell you that first, is languishing. Okay, languishing is our answer. We can easily replace languishing over here and say, if it continues, the vacation trend will be a powerful boost to domestic tourism operators languishing in the economic slump caused due to the pandemic. Now, a lot of you might say, but I don't know the meaning, and then you will panic that I don't know the meaning, so how will I get to this, right? So, I'll tell you a very easy way. Here you're reading the context, and we've gone over context in detail, so if you have any confusions, go attend the RC session again, watch it again. So here we are saying technology is making advancement at a rapid rate, but the industry is losing a lot of its trained and skilled craftsmen. With that, the art of embellishing brass and copper utensils with fine engravings is also disappearing. So these two words will give you an idea that the crafts industry as a whole is going in the backwards direction. So instead of progressing, it is going in the backwards direction, and because of that, you can assume that languishing means not making progress. So opposite of making progress can be languishing. So failing to make progress is languishing, and you can get that idea because of reading this passage, understanding what it's trying to say, and looking at clues like the words losing and disappearing. Okay, so that is clear. All right, so how does the writer justify an artist's act of abandoning her or his traditional craft for a more lucrative option? So what is lucrative? Lucrative is something that will get you more benefits, perhaps more money, because the artists are working to earn. So a lucrative option would be an option that would get them more money. Okay, so how does the writer justify the act of abandoning tradition? Okay, so how the writer does that is, the writer has told us that, you know, the reason why these artists are no longer doing this is because it takes too long, first of all, to create one item by hand, and it would be a lot faster to do it with machines. Okay, you can create a lot more items with machines, and that would fetch you a lot more money. Okay, so this is how the artisans are justifying it. And so here the points that you can include in your answer are: traditional craft is not appreciated anymore, so nobody sees the value. You know, the traditional handicrafts are not always perfect. There might be situations where, you know, the lines are not straight or something is amiss. So in those cases, there are people who really like that. They say, you know, this is made by hand, that's why it has slight imperfections. But there might be people who, you know, don't like all of this, so they might not appreciate it. Artisans cannot run unprofitable business. So if you have a target to meet, that you have to provide 10,000 of an XYZ item in a month, and if it takes you one day to create one item, then obviously you can't meet those targets. So it'll be unprofitable for you, and they need to support their livelihood. So at the end of the day, they need to be making money, correct? So all these are points that you will include as the artist's justification for mechanizing and not doing it by hand anymore. Okay. And now here is a very important thing to remember, and it was mentioned in your marking scheme as well, that you will not copy sentences from the passage itself. You will not go to the passage, see what fits your answer and copy and paste it in your answer. You will have to write it in your own words, because you have to show your comprehension skills. Okay, so please do not use the same words. Whatever your understanding is, you're going to write it in your own words. All right. Okay, now let's get to the case-based factual passage. And this passage, for any of you who haven't read it, is about the side effects of festivals. So festivals are usually associated with, you know, fun things, celebration and all of those things, but there is a flip side, like it says, of celebrations, which is pollution. And so there was a survey that was conducted. Okay, and there was a simple questionnaire that was given to people where they had to answer 6 questions, and they had responded accordingly. Now here is your table. And here you have some statistics that how many people said yes to the question, no to the question, and also there was a can't say section where if you can't say yes, you can't say no, you'll say okay, I'm not sure. Alright, and then so the study eventually, after conducting the survey, said that instead of putting a ban on things that cause pollution during festivals, we should just impose strict rules and regulations. Okay, so the researchers believed that such measures would help in harnessing some ill effects that add to the growing pollution. Okay, and then the observations made in the study pointed to the environmental groups and eco clubs losing a battle due to okay, so it just basically highlighted what the researchers thought could be done as a solution to pollution that was happening due to festivals. Okay, this is what this passage was about. Now what kind of questions can you expect? Let's go through it. Justify the researchers' recommendation for limiting the drastic impact of festival pollution on the environment with reference to lines 16 to 21. Okay, so again, for those of you who were asking, the lines are given to you, so you can quickly refer to them. So let's see. Here, line 16 to 21. So the study recommended, this is what we are going to focus on, recommended imposition of strict rules and regulations as opposed to a total ban. Okay, just remember this, and now let's tackle the question. So what are the points you're going to include in your question? You're going to say that according to the researchers, strict rules and regulations are better. This is not your opinion. This is what is given in the factual passage. Okay, so strict rules and regulations are better. Then you can elaborate a little bit more on that. Why? Because when a ban is imposed, people are likely to revolt, especially if it's a sensitive issue for them. They won't accept the ban, and they won't see the ill effects of what their actions are causing, and they would see this as an attack on themselves. So people tend to revolt if something is completely forbidden. Okay, so if I tell you that you absolutely are not allowed to do this, if you do this, I will put you in jail, it will make you angry and less likely to understand the reason why I am saying this. Okay, so strict rules and regulations are better because they help to raise awareness. So instead of just forbidding someone from doing something, they raise awareness. Okay, so banning does not serve the purpose, people don't easily conform to bans, and strict rules pose some restrictions but still give the needed freedom. So because this is a democracy, everybody can argue that we have our own rights and we have our own opinions and we should be allowed to follow what we think is best for us. So in such situations, if you pose some restrictions, people will still have the freedom and will not feel very constricted or confined. Okay, so that is why rules and regulations are better than imposing a ban. Okay. Alright, so such points you will have to include in your answer. Then what's the next kind of question? Even though a fair percentage of people say no to bursting crackers, festival pollution persists. How does evidence from table 1 support this statement? So here, now this is a different kind of question. Here you will have to refer to the table that was given to you. And because it says how does evidence from the table support this statement, so you have to give evidence from the table to support whatever answer you're going to give. So you will go back to the table, and if we do that, let's quickly do that. There it is. Okay, so you have found, we can see that, do you feel bursting crackers is a must during festival? A lot of people have said no. So majority of people have said no. Okay, but what other percentages can we find that can counter this? Because this, if majority people are saying no, we don't feel the need to burst crackers, why are people still bursting so many crackers? So here we can see that over here, do you think, number 2, do you think most people abuse environmental resources during celebration of festivals? People say yes. 72% of people say yes, that people do abuse environmental resources. Okay, and then we can see over here, number 5, do you feel pressure to burst crackers during festivals as an expectation of your social status? 82% of people say yes. So even though they feel that bursting crackers, 54% people feel that bursting crackers is not a must, there are still other factors why they are perhaps being forced into bursting crackers. Okay, so we will use these points. We will use point 2 and we will use point 5 to see that this is why crackers are still being burst. Okay, so there we have important points that we will add is 72% people abuse environmental resources to celebrate festivals and 82% use crackers to showcase their social status. So even though 54% people said that it's not a must to burst crackers, a lot higher number of people are saying that people do abuse environmental resources and people use crackers to showcase their social status. Okay, this is how we will answer such a question, by showing them the data that we have. Alright, next, what purpose does the can't say column serve in the questionnaire? Very simple. So if you are asked a question, you can't say yes, you can't say no, maybe you're stuck somewhere in between, maybe you're not comfortable answering, maybe you're not comfortable sharing your thoughts, you can still say can't say. Alright, so that is why the can't say section is there. So respondents who choose not to express, who choose not to answer, and those who lack clarity or don't feel like responding. So these are the possible reasons why a can't say section is there. Okay, and that brings an end to your RC. So again, any doubts, you can go watch the other RC session and that should clear all your doubts. Okay, now let's move on to writing and grammar. Here you have in the writing section either a formal letter or an analytical paragraph, and so because your analytical paragraph in the sample paper was a little scary looking, so I thought we could take care of that. Okay, so I hope you can see this. Now this was your analytical paragraph question and it looks a little complicated. It seems like there's an information overload, but it's really not that hard. what is the so what are we talking about? We are talking about setbacks. That is the situation, and there are two ways to respond to it. So experience of feeling upset, there are two ways. So one branches out to this side and the other branches out to this side, and then you just have to read this side and you have to read the other side, and then you will get to know what the chart is basically telling you. Chart is basically telling you that if you have a setback, okay, and if you're feeling upset, there are two ways to process it. One is healthy processing, the other is inability to process it fully, okay. And so what happens when there is an inability to process it fully? What happens is that you tend to get stuck in a loop. So all these things, they will keep happening, okay. You will have a block feeling, you won't feel good about anything, you won't be able to accept your own inadequacy, you will get triggered, you will get angry. So all of this is explained in the different boxes, and basically you will get stuck in a loop unless somehow you manage to break out of this loop, and then you will end up in the healthy processing side, okay. And that can only happen through here. So if you follow the arrows, we keep doing that, here is a loop, and the only way to get out of it is through this. The only way to get out of it is through processing your feelings properly, okay. So this is what the chart is trying to tell you, and if you read the things in the boxes, that will give you material to add in your paragraph, okay. So let's see. First thing you will do is you will paraphrase the topic sentence. The topic sentence is already given to you. What is it? The topic sentence is dealing with setbacks, okay. And what you're going to talk about is how you can bifurcate dealing with setbacks into two things. Feeling upset, you can either process your feelings in a healthy manner, or you won't process your feelings, you will block your feelings. This is what you're going to add in your paraphrasing the topic sentence, okay. So you will say there are two kinds of responses to setbacks. There is a healthy response and an unhealthy response, okay. Then next you're going to add 2 points of contrast or comparison with evidence, and all the evidence is in the tiny boxes that are given. So what you're going to do, how are you going to draw a contrast? Contrast will be drawn between healthy processing and unhealthy processing, okay. So first you will say that when healthy processing helps you learn from your setback, and it helps you let go of your emotions and everything else that is given on the healthy processing side. But on the contrary, unhealthy processing leads you to self-criticism and self-doubt. So you can say something like this, you can say this in any other words, but the main intention is to draw contrast between healthy processing and unhealthy processing, okay. And so here you are going to get marks for using nice functional words. So here when you have to draw contrast, you can say things like, on the contrary. You can say in contrast to, okay. You can use words like despite, or you can say, striking difference. So you use words like these, any synonyms of this, to draw contrast, okay. And then when you have to make a comparison or build on a comparison, you can use words like moreover, furthermore, in addition to, additionally. So all these types of words are going to help you get more marks, okay, because they show that you can tie your ideas together properly. And so yes, Rog 7, you can explain it in your own way, you need to explain it in your own way, and you can use everything that is given to you. So you see there are so many nice terms that are given here, so you can use them. So you can say when you process your feelings healthily, you can learn from your setbacks, Okay, you can observe your patterns and rework your beliefs. So you can add all of these points, whatever you like. You can take many points and you can club them into one. You can take different points. And then you can say, on the contrary, when you are not able to process your feelings properly, that leads to self-criticism, it leads to self-doubt, and then people end up feeling listless, they feel like their attention is being diverted, and that manifests into things like anger and depression. So this is just an example of how you can pick and choose things from the chart and phrase it in any way that you like, whatever you're comfortable with, okay? So that is what you're going to do. After you paraphrase the topic sentence, you are going to draw contrast between healthy processing and unhealthy processing. Okay, so this talks about the content of whatever you are analyzing. And then you're going to provide a concluding sentence that gives a clear perspective. And so what this chart is trying to teach us is that you will fall into a vicious trap or a vicious cycle. We drew that loop, correct? So you will fall into that loop, that cycle of self-doubt and depression and anxiety if you are not able to process your feelings in a healthy manner. That is what the chart is trying to tell you. So that is how you're going to conclude. So you can say something like, it is clear that experiencing a setback leads to feelings of inadequacy and incompetency, along with an unwillingness to accept situations. So responding to setbacks in a positive way is empowering and it can lead to success. So you can phrase anything like this and you will get all your marks. Okay? So this is testing your analysis, but at the same time your points need to make sense, they need to tie into each other properly, and they need to be grammatically accurate. Your spellings need to be correct. So over here, yes, Somana, you're going to use transition words, you're going to use linking words, you're going to use functional language that, if you read some, academic writings, if you ever get the chance, you have a lot of time before your exam. So try to read more academic writings, try to read articles, in good newspapers, you will find opinion pieces, op-eds, editorials. If you read all of these, then you will get an idea of how functional language can be used to make a point. Okay, so if you do get the time, please do it. It will both help your vocabulary and tell you how you can write better. Okay. Alright, so that's it for analytical paragraph. It seemed a little daunting, but it wasn't that hard. And now we have the grammar section. Here you're going to do editing and reported speech. And again, for reported speech, we had a very long and detailed session on reported speech. So if you have any doubts, please go watch that session. There are a lot of tips and tricks in that session and it clears everything you need to know about reported speech. So no worries there, and we will revise the grammar section again as well, so don't worry about that. But if you are confused about reported speech, go watch that session, it will really help you. So over here in the grammar, this is what your editing will look like. So let's read the question prompt first. It says the following paragraph has not been edited. There is one error in each line. So it tells you there is one error in each line. So you know this A, B, C, there is definitely an error in these lines. Identify the error and write its correction against the correct blank number. Remember to underline the correction. The first one has been done for you. So you have a sample over here as well. Okay. So here, let's go. Have you ever learned from a mistake you have made? So in this, have you ever learned from a mistake you have made? The error that we clearly have is learn. Should be in the past tense, should be learnt, and that correction has been made. This was given as an example. So similarly in all the other lines, we are going to look for errors and we are going to correct them. So let's see. Let's read the next sentence. Many shouldn't admit doing so. For those who do, okay, so there's an error here. Have you ever learnt from a mistake you have made? Many shouldn't admit doing so. For those who do. So here, the answer, okay, do you want to try this out? If you've looked at the marking scheme, you'll know the answer. But if you want to try this out, you can send me the answer on the chat. What is the error? And I need an explanation as to why that's the error. Very quickly. Okay, Narendra is saying should. Where is the word should? I don't see should anywhere. What is the error? It shouldn't. There's a shouldn't over here. Okay, so a lot of you are saying don't. So you need to tell me what the error is. See, you have to write both the error and the correction. So, yes, Charvi said it, shouldn't to don't. Okay, so here the error is shouldn't. So we are stating a fact. We are saying many people don't admit. Or so we are not giving a suggestion. We are not saying many shouldn't admit doing so. I'm not telling you you shouldn't admit your mistakes. I'm saying as a general observation, many people don't. Okay, so here our error is shouldn't. So we'll write shouldn't here and we'll change it to don't. But this does not have only one right answer. This can also have another right answer. It can also be won't. Can it not? Many people won't admit doing so. Okay? So shouldn't changes to don't, many don't, or many won't admit doing so. For those who do, there was no need for guilt. We often make mistakes. Okay, here our sentence so far is going in present tense. For those who do, now suddenly it changes to past tense. There was no need for guilt. So obviously was here is wrong. Was is an error. There was no need for guilt should be there is no need for guilt. Very good. So Aditi and Smarty, nice, got the answer. Okay. Moving on, we often make mistakes while taking risks, but all brush them aside and learn. Okay, here, what is the error? Come on, quickly. Some people are saying guilt and admitted. So mostly the errors you will find, they are mostly tense related. There is a tense mismatch, so you can look out for that. But here, no, so we've already covered the mistake for this sentence, and the mistake here is was. So how can guilt be a mistake? Guilt is not a mistake. They're saying for those who do, there is no need, giving an advice, there is no need to feel guilt. No need for guilt. If we say feel, we'll say there is no need to feel guilty. So here there is no need for guilt. We're using it as a noun here. That's why guilt is correct in this context and was is wrong because the tense is wrong. What is the answer for C? I don't see any answers. People are saying risks to risk. We often make mistakes while taking risk, you're saying. Okay, any other answers? Okay, so risk here is correct. There is no problem with risk. We often make mistakes while taking risks. You can take multiple risks. It's not necessary for you to take only one risk. So there's no problem with risks. But let's read what it says next. But all brush them aside and learn. Do all people brush their mistakes or guilt aside and learn? No, not all of them. We cannot generalize that all people do this. So we need to change our quantifier. We cannot say all, but we can say, as some of you are saying, some. Correct. So here all is the mistake, and we can say some brush them aside and learn. But we can also say that many brush them aside and learn. Okay. Depending upon your worldview, you can say, okay, some brush them aside and learn. You can also say many brush them aside and learn. So, many can also be a possible answer. So, as you can see, when you're editing, there can be multiple correct answers. Doesn't have to be one correct answer for each, okay? So, does that make sense? So look out for little things. We can look out for tenses. Like in the case of all, we can look out for quantifiers. Okay? And we can look out for modals also. So all these things will quickly help us figure out what's wrong, and just reading it once, even after you corrected it, read it once. If something seems amiss, you will be able to get to the right answer. Okay? So we'll do this in more detail when we do grammar. This is just to give you an idea. So don't worry about the very technical aspects of it. We can get into that later. Alright, so here we have a reported speech question. It's quite funny. I thought it was funny. So read the conversation between a teacher and student and complete the passage that follows. So here is the conversation. Biology teacher says, I instructed you to draw the diagram of bacteria. Why did you submit a blank sheet? Samir says, Sir, I had drawn the diagram of bacteria, but you can't see it because it is not visible to the naked eye. So how many of you will say things like these to your teacher? I'd really like to know if you've said things like this to your teachers. I'm sure there are many of you. Yes, I thought so. Charvi saying not me. Very nice, Charvi. Good. You're a good student. Okay. So, here we have a reported speech question, and we can see that first the teacher is asking a question and the student is responding to that question, and we have to fill in the blanks. So the biology teacher had instructed Samir to draw the diagram of a bacterial cell and asked him blank, a blank sheet. So here in the blank we are going to enter, or we're going to fill in the question that the teacher asked. Okay, so we have to change the question to reported speech from direct speech, and then Samir respectfully answered that he had drawn the diagram but blank to the naked eye. So what part is missing? I had drawn the diagram but you can't see it because it is not visible. This part is missing. This is the blank. So the two things that I've underlined in the question are the things that we have to convert to reported speech. So let's do that very quickly. So the first thing we'll do is we'll focus on the question. And so why did you submit a blank sheet? Is in the, what tense is it in? Why did you? It's in the simple past tense, and we know from our reported speech rules that there will always be a tense back shift when we are reporting something. Okay? So the simple past will turn into past perfect. Correct? So many of you got the answer. Some of you made a mistake. So some of you have kept the tense the same. Study for success. Okay? A lot of you are keeping the tense the same. So always remember reported speech, whatever tense, you will go back. So because it's simple past, you will go further back and we'll have past perfect tense. Okay? So why he had submitted is the right answer, as Minsara, Charvi, a lot of you are saying. Aditi, very good, good job. Why he had submitted. So that is important. So the answer to A is why he had submitted. Okay? Alright. So there's always a tense back shift. Remember that. And any doubts you have in this, watch the reported speech session and all of them will be clear. Then Samir respectfully answered that he had drawn the diagram, but, so here we have to fill in this part. You can't see it because it is not visible. So as we know, we don't even have to think much. Can't, we'll change to couldn't. Okay? But he couldn't see it because, now here is where another thing comes in, another rule comes in. Bacteria is not visible to the naked eye is a fact. Okay? And that will not change. So because it is not visible, will stay in the same tense. There will be no change for because it is not visible. Okay? So here, universal truth, fact remains the same in reported speech, and can't will change to couldn't. Okay? So we will say he couldn't see it because it is not visible. So let me write that down for you. He couldn't see it because it is not visible. So it's not like if we change it to it was not visible, it's not like it just was not visible back then. That can't be the case. It will never be visible to the naked eye. So universal truth will stay the same in reported speech. Can, can't will change to couldn't. Yes, there we go. A lot of you got it. Good job. So that's it. So they gave you a little joke also in the question paper. I think that's very sweet of them. Okay, so now some people are saying you couldn't see it. So we need to change the pronoun also. So Samir respectfully answered that he had drawn the diagram. Now we are reporting it to someone else. So the you, Samir is not talking to the teacher. And I am not talking to the biology teacher. You are not talking to the biology teacher. So we need to change the pronoun. You can't keep it as you. When I'm reporting this to somebody else, I'm telling this to somebody else, I'm talking about two people who are not a part of the conversation. So you will change to he. Okay? You will change to he. So the pronouns also you need to take care of. All of these rules you need to take care of. Okay? Alright, so that's it for grammar as well, and now we're at the last portion of this. So have you all completed your syllabus for literature? Have you gone ahead and read everything that's in your syllabus? Do you know all the stories and the poems? Sophia is asking, why can't we use she? We can't use she because they have mentioned the gender of the teacher for us. Okay, so Samir, okay, if they had instructed you to draw sir, there we go. It's right there in the question. So you can miss out small things like this. If it was ma'am over here, you would have used she. But because it says sir, we are using he. Okay. Alright, so Yasharth has also done it. Some people have left some part of it. That's okay. So we'll still look at the questions and we'll cover literature in detail anyway, so no problem. This is your syllabus. Okay, and we are going to cover all of it. Don't worry. Right now we'll just take a look at some of the questions that were there in the paper so that we can get an idea of what we need to be prepared for and how we need to answer them. Okay, so you'll have two subsections. So one subsection will have shorter answers, 30 to 40 words. And the other one is going to be longer, 120 words. Okay. Anirudh, your school has completed full syllabus. Very nice. Okay, so you'll have a better idea of what we are talking about. Any of you who don't know the syllabus, that's okay, because we are going to go over it anyway. Okay, so here is a question from subsection 1. So this is going to be a shorter answer. So it will just be a 30 to 40 word answer. Okay. Question is, a ballad includes the telling of a tale as well as a surprise ending. Using evidence from the poem, explain how these features are included in the tale of Custard the Dragon. Okay, so here they've already told us that the tale of Custard the Dragon is a ballad. Okay, and it's also explained what it means. It means telling of a tale with a surprise ending. So from the question, you just need to know that you need to explain how all of these features are there in the tale of Custard the Dragon. Okay. So what we are going to include in our answer? First we are going to tell them what the tale is about. So the tale of Custard the Dragon is about Belinda and her many pets, one of which is Custard the Dragon. So you can talk about Ink, Blink, Mustard and all of them, and you know how all of them are so fearless and strong, and Custard is the scaredy cat amongst all of them. So you can talk about all of this in nice words with correct spelling and grammar to explain what the tale is about. Then you can elaborate on setting, characters, rising action, climax and resolution. So the feature of a ballad, the point of a ballad is that through a poem or a song, you are telling a story. Okay, so in the entire tale of Custard the Dragon, there is a story that is unfolding in front of us. So you are going to talk about that story, and you're just going to say how everybody lived with Belinda, how all of them had their unique characteristics. Ink was a cat, Blink was a mouse, Mustard was a dog. Okay, and how everybody was always up for adventure, but Custard always wanted a nice safe cage for himself because he was scared. How everybody used to make fun of Custard for being scared all the time. And then what happens? A pirate comes and things get tense. Okay, then you can elaborate on life with Belinda. Now, so all of this is basically talking about right before the pirate enters, everything that happens. Okay, for all of you who have read the poem, you'll know what I'm talking about. For all of you who don't, no worries, we'll go over it in the next session anyway. Okay, and then what is the surprise ending? So what is the climax? What is the conflict that happens? The pirate enters and no one is able to do anything. Everybody gets really scared of the pirate, and the only person who's the only entity over here who's able to defend all of them is Custard the Dragon. Okay, and so the Custard comes, fearlessly kills the pirate, and then everybody is amazed. But then they're like, okay, maybe we could have also done it if we hadn't, been in. They make up excuses for not defending the house against the pirate, and then Custard is like, yeah, okay, sure. So in the ending, it's not like Custard is hailed as some hero. He has his moment for a short time. The surprise ending is that out of everybody who were known to be fearless, Custard was the one who was able to show fearlessness and bravery in the end. But then still, at the end, things go back to normal and Custard has no problem with it. Okay, so this is what you're going to talk about in your answer, 30 to 40 words. What is the tale about? Who are the characters? It's all happening in Belinda's house. What happens? Pirate comes. None of the fearless ones defend the house against the pirate except for Custard. Okay, that's it. Next, briefly state how Matilda invited a dreadful life of necessity into her family. So what story is this from? This is from The Necklace, right? Okay, and how did Matilda invite a dreadful life of necessity? This is in the story itself. So what happens? Matilda loses the necklace, and to be able to buy another one and replace it, they use all their life savings, and then they have to live in poverty and have to work really hard because of all the money that they lost due to it. Correct? So what all points can you include? So Matilda's extreme self-indulgence, the fact that she absolutely wanted to look good for the party, the fact that she wanted a nice necklace, the fact that she wanted an expensive gown, all of this shows her self-indulgence. Then you can say she dreams of a luxurious life, riches and jewelry. So in the beginning, they established that Matilda was not happy in her life because she wanted to be rich, but instead she was just married to a clerk, and perhaps her luck was really bad because everything that she aspired to have, she did not have. And then doesn't pay heed to the advice of wearing natural flowers. So at one point, her husband even suggests that if you want to look good for the party, you can wear natural flowers. They are in season right now. And she says, no, I don't want to look any less than the women that are going to be at the party. So I need nice jewelry. Borrows the necklace, loses it. So not only does she go out of her way to make sure she has something that is very important to her, which is jewelry, she also ends up losing it at the end of the night and lives a horrible life of necessity and deprivation because they had to spend and borrow and do so much to get the money to pay for the replacement necklace. And so that life resulted in a hand-to-mouth existence. So just for that one day, that one party and her one carelessness of losing the necklace, they had to spend 10 long years trying to get all of that money back. Yes, Yashat, the necklace story is written by, and Interesting fact, the name is pronounced in a very different way, the author's name, because he's French. So it will be pronounced Guy de Maupassant. The G-U-Y is not Guy, it's Guy in French. So yes, there we go. And we all know how the story ends. In the end, it turns out that the necklace wasn't even real. But that's not what the question is asking. The question is only asking why they ended up in a life of necessity. Okay. Next, the hack driver successfully trapped the narrator in his web of words. Comment. So, hack driver is from the hack driver, and what does the hack driver do? Successfully fools the narrator. Correct? So, what are we going to include in our points? We're going to talk about how the hack driver was a conversationalist, cheerful, friendly, befriends the narrator who trusts him for everything he says and does. So the hack driver comes across as a very reliable, trustworthy man who goes out of his way to help. Okay, and because of that, the narrator falls into his trap. He's like, wow, such a helpful person. Okay, must be a very nice guy. And with that, the narrator gets trapped into the web of lies that the hack driver creates. Asks the narrator to stay behind himself, makes inquiries, offers homemade lunch, mints money. So all of these are tactics to fool the narrator. How did they fool the narrator? So the hack driver went everywhere pretending to ask for some person, and seems like everybody in the village were in on it because they all answered. So the hack driver went everywhere, asked, and for all of you, those who don't know, the hack driver himself is the person that the narrator was looking for. Throughout the story, the narrator goes to a village to look for a specific person to take him to court, and the hack driver is that very person. So throughout the story, the hack driver comes across as a very nice, reliable, trustworthy person, but he turns out to be a con artist of sorts at the end. Okay, so asks the narrator to stay behind, himself makes inquiries, even takes him to the said person's mother, which turns out to be his own mother, and an entire drama happens over there. So he creates this illusion for the narrator, and the narrator keeps falling deeper into the trap. Also offers homemade lunch. So another tactic to win someone's trust is to, make them feel more welcome and more comfortable by offering homemade lunch, and even takes money for the hours he spent with the narrator. Then befools and outwits the narrator in the guise of help. So what the narrator thought was a very helpful person was just a person who was exploiting him and making a fool of him the entire time. This is what you're going to talk about for such a question. Doesn't have to be very long, 30 to 40 words, because it's subsection 1. Now let's look at a longer question that you will get under subsection 2, which will have to be around 120 words. Okay, so here Pranjal and Rajveer discuss their next vacation destination. They shortlist Coorg and Goa. Rajveer is keen on Coorg and tries to convince Pranjal. Develop a conversation between the two based on your understanding of glimpses of India. So now you have to write an entire conversation based on your understanding. So this is not a question that's directly from the chapter. So it's not going to test simply what was given in the chapter. It is going to test if you can apply what was given in the chapter to a different situation. So the chapter delved deep into Coorg, Goa. So in the Goa part of it, we talked about bakers and how it's been a tradition and they've always been around. And in the Coorg, the narrator was explaining how beautiful Coorg is, full of coffee estates and all of those things. And then finally, Rajveer and Pranjal are characters from the Assam bit, where they go to Assam and visit a tea estate. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to take these two characters and we are going to make a fictional conversation between them, where Rajveer is trying to convince Pranjal to go to Coorg. So what do you have to do? You have to take your understanding, whatever you read about Coorg, everything that you got to know about Coorg from the chapter, you're going to take that understanding and you're going to apply it to this conversation that you're going to create. So it can start something like this. Rajveer is saying, hey Pranjal, I think we should be visiting Coorg. It's a beautiful place with coffee plantations. I can smell the aroma already. Pranjal says, we visited a tea plantation last year in Assam. I want to. So it seems like Pranjal is not very interested in Rajveer's idea. So now what will Rajveer have to do? Somebody is not, your friend is not interested in doing something with you. What are you going to do? You're going to give them incentives to do something. So what are we going to include in the dialogues? So like we've already discussed, understanding of the chapter. Now you have to give arguments. So Rajveer will have to give arguments to Pranjal that why visiting Coorg is a great idea. Okay, and then you have to make it conversational because it's a conversation between two friends. It needs to be written that way, and then you need to add examples from text descriptions. So here you have to recall a lot of things that you read in the chapter. So for Rajveer to be able to convince Pranjal, he can say, you know, Coorg is really beautiful. You can give some basic facts about Coorg, that it's a small district in Karnataka, like one of you mentioned in the comments. You can say it's full of evergreen rainforests. Again, it's full of spices and coffee plantations. And perhaps when Rajveer says, you know, it's full of coffee plantations, then Pranjal can say, but you know, we just visited a tea estate. Why do we want to visit a coffee plantation? Then Rajveer can talk about the other things that Coorg is known for. I have a question. Will you teach? Yes, all the chapters will be covered. Don't worry. Okay. We'll cover all the chapters. So here then you can get a lot of other information from the chapter itself. So you can say, you know, the Kaveri river is there and we can do a lot of adventure sports. So you can, there was a part in the story that spoke about river rafting, and you can go canoeing, you can go mountain biking, you can do different things like this. So if you're not in the mood to do a peaceful coffee estate tour, then we can do something adventurous in the Kaveri river. Or there are many things. We can see a lot of wildlife. So there were mentions of different kind of animals that you can find there. You can find the elephants, okay, you can find Malabar squirrels, you can find macaque, monkeys, okay, so all kinds of wildlife is there. You can mention that, you know, the Brahmagiri hills are there, and if you climb the Brahmagiri hills, you will get an entire view of Coorg. Rajveer can also say that, you know, if you feel like having a more peaceful sort of a time, then we have the Tibetan settlement. The second largest Tibetan settlement in India, in the world actually, is very close to Coorg. Bailakuppe is the name of the place, I believe. So yeah, you can mention all of these things from the chapter, whatever you can recall, and add it to the conversation. Okay, so it's not important for you to remember all of these points, but whatever you can remember, you can give two sort of arguments. So it's entirely in your hands. What Pranjal says is also in your hands. Okay, so if Pranjal is saying, you know, I want to have a peaceful time, then you can make Rajveer say things like, you know, the Tibetan settlement is right over there, so we can have a peaceful and spiritual time. Or, you know, we can visit the coffee estates and climb the hills and see the views. So all of that Rajveer can say. Or if you want Pranjal to say, no, it's very boring to have a peaceful time, I want to do something adventurous, then Rajveer can say, you know, the Kaveri river is there, so we can go river rafting, we can go canoeing. So all of these points, accordingly, you can make an entire conversation and apply your understanding of the chapter and make sure that your spellings and grammar is correct. So this is not like the RC where you can write anything, and as long as your comprehension is visible, you will get marks. You will have to make sure that it's correct. Okay. So I hope you got an idea. I hope you're more comfortable with the pattern and the fact that it's subjective. So I think there's nothing to worry about. In a lot of places, literature, you had such a hard time last time because the MCQ options were so difficult and so ambiguous that you couldn't really pinpoint what the correct answer is. So all of that is negated over here. You don't have to worry about ambiguity and stuff like that because it's entirely in your hands how you answer the questions. Okay, so there are positives as well, so don't worry because there are pros and cons to each kind of pattern, and I think this will be fun. We'll cover all the chapters. In fact, here is the next session for you. On 25th January we are doing a poem session, so we'll cover all the poems, which includes the Custard the Dragon, which we just discussed. And thank you for the advice, Telly Kobo. I will do that. Alright, so that brings us to the end of the session. So as always, like, subscribe and I hope you're all safe. A lot of you told me you're getting vaccinated, which is a great thing, so I hope you've been keeping safe. And like you all crack jokes on the chat sometimes, be positive but not COVID positive, so I will crack the same joke for you. And just don't worry about the subjective question paper. It's going to be very, very easy, and whatever your doubts are, we'll take care of them in the upcoming sessions, okay? Alright, thank you. So, Parinita, we are doing poems next. So, we'll cover all the poems in the next session. Alright, have a great day. Thank you so much. See you next time. Alright, bye-bye everyone.